Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there.
So, guys, give me 1 second. I just want to make sure. All right, we're okay. Just because yesterday we did do a video, it took 3 hours to put together, and it was screwed up in the recording. We know we had outside interference. So, yesterday was one of those rare days where we didn't get a video up, but we did get more tomato plants, pepper plants planted. We got the herb garden started. We built some kind of structures to help support some of the, well, like the blackberry plants, which are going crazy, the blackberry bushes, which are growing very, very fast. And I'm going to have to do the same with the grapes and the raspberries and the blueberries as well. So everything's going good out there. We did have a little aphid infestation starting, and so we used diatomaceous earth, and it looked okay. I didn't notice any this morning when I was checking them out.
Yeah, so I kind of have a feeling our biggest challenge probably is going to be bugs. And so I know that diatomaceous earth is really well. I've heard neem oil, I've heard castor oil, so we'll probably be getting into that area too as far as fighting off bugs without using the pesticides.
Yeah, we have a lot of frogs and toads here, thankfully, which do eat bugs. So that's a positive thing. I'd love to put a little pond in, just something small, like even maybe 4 or 5 feet by 6 to 8 feet in the back, just to attract them and give the frogs and toads, somewhere to hang out and sing at night. So what I wanted to talk about is we've actually done a ton of channelings. We've had like 2 a day coming through most days, a lot of which we got taped, others which we haven't gotten taped. But we want to share some of the important stuff that's been coming through. As we've been feeling for a while, for quite a while, we've been calling out August, as being a key month. And I had shared with you guys before, I heard clearly a voice telling me, basically gave me a timeline. And I had listened to it on July 11th, and the timeline was 43 days. Now, of course, that's super specific. We don't usually get things that specific from the other side, so it makes me suspicious. We know there's technology out there that certain groups, certain alphabet soups can they could put their words in your head. And that night I left the router on. So whether that was a red herring or whether it was a reality, I'm not sure. Although the gut feels like that timeline is right. And that would equate to around the 22nd, 23rd of August, which does feel right for some sort of big events. In August, we are getting that there's going to be major, major events. On what magnitude? Well, paradigm shifting, changing our reality, changing the way we have to live, which we've had many of those events throughout history.
We have, and they changed the whole globe. They changed the planet. We have to really be aware of ourselves and our centering and our heart. Where are we at specifically? Because everything starts with us as an individual, and the energies flow out from there. So we have to really be mindful now of where is our heart chakra? Where is our heart these days?
Yeah, that is key. And we've had many conversations with the Galactic Federation and our contact Laurel. We've also had multiple conversations with Isis Aset, which is a collective. So it's a collective. Isis is a ascended collective of 6 density beings. And she's been coming through loud and clear. And, she actually fended off a demonic attack last night for us that was coming after Cindy, as Cindy is often, the target of attacks. And the dark forces have not been able to get to her, thankfully, even though they keep trying. And even though we know at this moment they're listening to the words that I am speaking all about this, trying to see how successful they have been. But yeah, this has been interesting. We've also had contact with some with ETs that we never had talked to before previously, and that's been interesting as well. And also White Buffalo Calf Woman coming through, which she has been a guide at Cindy's for years now. And so there are many guides out there from many traditions. We also commune with Yeshua on a regular basis. And, this is really what it's all about is, again, the gnosis, the direct experience where you're not going through middlemen. And yes, you guys are listening to us now. Again, take what resonates with you, let go of anything that doesn't resonate with you. But the big thing is, we hope that you will pursue meditation, Qigong, yoga, these type of pursuits that can develop these abilities in yourself so you could have direct knowledge. So you can know instead of going through the left-hand brain and saying, well, so-and-so says this and so-and-so says that, and this says that. Well, understand for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
This is the big thing. Then you can't be tricked. They could tell you in the history books this happened, but when you are able to say, in one terms, access the Akashic records yourself, then and then whoops, that doesn't jive. Something is wrong here.
Right. It's okay to get direction. There's nothing wrong with getting direction, seeking out direction. But the entire time while you're seeking out direction, you always want to keep coming back to yourself. Keep coming back to your center. Keep checking with yourself. Is this sound right to me? Does that sound right to me? And then also the source of the information that you get your information from. We talked about that a lot yesterday in that video that didn't make it out, about how important it is to have the information come through you.
Recognize, and we're going to get into this deeper when we rehash that video, that the system that we have in place, and this includes all aspects of it, the monetary system, the political structure, and the religious system, is one that we are given from the power brokers. Who are the power brokers? Well, it's not necessarily looking at the politicians. Those are guys way down the ladder. If you want to look at the politicians, if you're equating it to power structures, you're talking about maybe they're even sergeants, if that, in the bigger scheme of things. And then of course maybe above that you have corporals that would be equated to certain families, like the ROTH Childs, the Rockefellers,
Mm-hmm.
the DuPonts, it goes on and on. And ultimately what you get up to is intelligences and beings that are not Homo sapiens. Actually, the Igigi that we talk about and that we've heard of in the Sumerian stories. The Igigi who rebelled against the Anunnaki and who eventually came here from Mars, and they brought the entire system with them from Mars. This is their system that was in place in Mars. So this is, what we have seen on 3D Earth is their system. There was a time when the Devas, the gods, the bright and shining ones of so many legends that actually taught man the secrets of the universe themselves, how the universe really works. Things like what we learn in the Kybalion, with the 7 Hermetic principles. Now, these are taught to us by benevolent beings. They're not taught to us by the GG, who are underneath the Anunnaki, who are underneath the Draco, who are basically underneath the archonic influences and this AI Borg type thing that they want humanity assimilated into. Again, think technology, think that push for the singularity between man and machine. Think about all the NANO technology that's all around you all the time and also in you. This is why when I take a bath every night, I'm taking a bath in borax. And yes, I do throw Epsom salts and tea tree in there too, for good measure. And there's other things that are useful as well. But we want to get rid of the nanotechnology because what they're trying to do is literally, just as we know in Star Trek, assimilate the mass of humanity into the Borg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is where we like to talk to you guys and teach you guys how to go within, how to find a good spiritual practice, how to know when you are hearing the truth, and ultimately kind of get yourself out of that box, because we are individuals, we are human beings, not human doings. They have us so busy running around working, paying our bills, in some sort of competition with the guy next door, that we don't have time to just sit and be. That's what we are supposed to do, is we are supposed to sit and be and bloom and create, bloom like a flower, not be directed by all of these outside influences. That's not what we are destined to do.
No, not at all. And I'm not trying to keep up with the Joneses. My front lawn is knee high right now, so we have not been able to get around to that. We still have not fully unpacked since our, move. And, the reason is because there's more important things, getting fruits, veggies into the ground, herbs, getting things started and planted, as well as taking care of ourselves physically, mentally, spiritually. Those are things that come first and foremost, and working on people. So, we spend so many hours a day just answering emails and scheduling people and then working on people energetically. And what's happening now is people can feel what's coming. As we were talking about, we are at a crossroads in history. There are certain periods in time when things, they just change. And I love this photo because she's up in the ship and she's looking down at the earth and reaching out to us. And this does remind me a lot of how Laurel would be reaching out to us. There's a beautiful benevolence in there because there are so many that do care about us. And we see headlines from history: heir to Austrian throne assassinated, wife by his side also shot to death. Earlier attempt on their lives failed. And this was Franz Ferdinand, nephew of Emperor Francis Joseph, who was killed in the Bosnia capital an hour after warding off a bomb which injured scores. And this was basically the driver took him down the wrong street. And was it the wrong street? No, it was a total setup. And there are setups in history, and that triggered World War One. And of course, we know Pearl Harbor, right, in World War II. Well, there's intelligence that says we knew it was coming, but yet we didn't get the ships out. The ships were sitting ducks there. And my own grandfather was on a sub en route to Pearl Harbor. He was about a week out when it happened. And my own grandfather had enlisted when he was either 15 or 16. He lied about his age. And he stayed in the service until he was in his 50s. He was a career guy. Same thing with my uncle. Same thing with, going back in time, other generations. I was the only one that bucked the trend of not going into the service. And then, of course, the world changed after 9/11. It totally changed. We have all the new laws that come into effect. Everything changed. There's certain events in history that happen, and the world is not the same place after. And I remember when I was first reading articles about what was happening in Wuhan and everything, and I told Cindy, I think we got to go with this right now. We got to tell people about this. Feels like this is something really big happening here. And it did. And the world has not been the same since. Well, what feels like is coming is something of a magnitude where, again, the world's not going to be the same again. And we do have a ways to go in this battle over the hearts and minds and very souls of the people and the animals and other beings on this planet. And I know there are some channelings out there that are saying, hold on to the light. Don't worry. Everything's going to be all right. There's already lockups. There's already, even executions going on and this and that. And I got a link for one of them, which again, we don't really listen to those things. We don't like to listen to anybody else's channelings. We just don't want to be affected by anybody else's. And again, when you develop your own perceptive abilities and your own ability to channel, when I could, basically put Cindy into a trance and call on an entity and get direct answers, why do I want to listen to anybody else? And if you could do the same thing over time, why would you want to listen to anybody else? It's picking up the phone. That's what channeling is in so many ways. And yeah, people will say something, well, you got to be careful about what entities you're channeling. You just know by the vibration. Again, if you take the time to develop your Kundalini, which first it's getting rid of all the baggage so that your chakras are always open. And your chakras can't close. I could go out and have something traumatic happen, like learn of the death of a close friend or something, and all of a sudden it hits me to the core where some of my chakras are starting to close down because I got so much grief coming in, so much sadness. It could happen to any of us at any time that our chakras could close down. So we have to always be working on keeping them open, because when they close down, they're cutting us off from certain lines of information. If your crown chakra is not open, then you're not connected to your higher self. If you're not connected to your higher self, then you're more apt to believe lies.
Well, the decisions you make are more apt to be guided by outside entities if your crown chakras and if all of your chakras are not open. It's so important to have those lines of communication to higher self open so that you're getting the right information. So you definitely want to be open, ready to receive, blocks removed, chakras combed, columned, energy body in a nice shape so you can heal. When you heal, then at that point you are able to bring the Kundalini in and have these changes happen in your life. But it's very important. The healing is so critical. That's such a huge part of the journey. That's also what we came here to do. So we have to take the time to do that and heal. And having your chakras open are really important thing to do when you're healing.
It's only when your chakras are open that your Kundalini has a chance to come out of hiding in its dormancy down the base of the spine, flow up the Sushumna, go through each of the chakras as the nadis, the Ida and the Pingala, the energy currents there, the masculine and the feminine, crisscross at those chakras, and then illuminate the third eye where you could see with clarity, with the knowing. Until that it happens, you're basically, you have to make judgments just using logic without really knowing. Um, there was a good comment too about what's the difference between the knowing and that gut feeling I get. Well, yeah, the gut feeling is a little bit of touching on that knowing. It's very, very similar. It's an emotional thing and an energetic thing. So like when I'm channeling Isis Aset and I'm talking to Isis Aset, Cindy's channeling, she comes across in a certain way. Cindy's voice changes a little bit. It was really interesting. She was so strong and powerful because, like, out of the blue in the middle of the night, I hear a voice say to me, well, say out into the ether, get away from her. You're not needed here. And if your wife said that in the middle of the night, you'd be saying, honey, what did I do? I didn't do anything. Yeah. But I recognized, wow, that voice was strong, powerful, and authoritative and no nonsense. And then she told me it's the one you know as Isis Aset, and and I was just getting rid of a demon that was trying to hurt Cindy's
She
health.
did. She came right in and she helped me. There was one attacking me. That's what the only part really that I remember is that thing coming into to attack, and then, you know, then I'm in a trance from there. But I do remember that. So it is nice to know that we do have these entities looking after us. Even when we're asleep. It's beautiful.
Yeah, as we shared with that one other channeling where you hear one thump and then a big thump. That was the demonic entity. And coincidentally, I was awakened out of sleep because I heard what sounded like some movement outside close to the bedroom windows, and then that happened. So again, we've been blessed that we have protection from above, but we ask for it on a daily basis, and you could ask for it too. And of course, many people wouldn't be comfortable with asking Isis Aset for help because they've been brought up in the Abrahamic tradition. So they've been taught to not go to any sort of goddess energy for help. And again, these are all beings, and they don't claim to be source. They don't claim to be the one only God of the entire universe, as again that term has been so misused throughout the ages. But you could call on the beings that you feel comfortable with. And we do call on Yeshua on a daily basis as well, and the archangels, because we know these are benevolent beings. So is Kuan Yin, so is Lakshmi, so is Isis. So it's again up to you. But what we have gotten is that there are going to be major, major events that are going to change things. Now, we could see all the stuff going on right now across the globe. The thing that I found interesting, too, is we made contact with a being who is here from the future, is not of the earth, is actually a very interesting creature that seems to be part feline and part kind of like a frog, but in a humanish body. That's here with the crew. And this is what they're doing. They're just hanging out watching the show. They're watching the show. And they had a message for us. And we asked, why did you contact us? And they said, because you're only one of maybe 5 or 6 that our resonance can make contact with on the whole planet. And so their words for us was, and this is for you, stay strong, was the message. Stay strong. Because the times that we've been through up to this point obviously have been very challenging. It's going to get a little bit more challenging. Mm-hmm. And so this is when we have to be strong. When events like Pearl Harbor come, 9/11, things like that, they can drop us to our knees. They could really hit you as a body blow where your breath is almost taken away, and you're kind of in confusion, and you're trying to correlate, what does this really mean? What's going to happen? When 9/11 happened, people were waiting for attacks all over the place. We didn't know what was coming next. This is big. We're going into a phase where things are increasing again to a much higher level. This is interesting too, because we've also gotten that the pyramids were originally there for healing. Mm-hmm. And they were hijacked as we fell through the ages. Again, it's all about the yuga cycles. When we're back to Lemurian times and pre-Lemurian times, we basically are in a 5D existence here on Earth. And things are very, very different. The beings that were walking around were benevolent. This is the references to the ancient and shining ones that taught humanity how the universe works. The fact that there's countless stars out there, all sorts of life forms, and life forms were coming and going all the time. We were like a train station, so to speak, a galactic train station or airport, so to speak, where there's all different beings intermingling, coming and going in a relatively peaceful manner. As we fell through the yugas, the good ones couldn't hang out with us anymore because they're too high vibrational. So the only company we had was the lower vibrational frequency ones. And they kept pushing their objectives of bringing us as low as possible so they could keep us under their control and utilize us as a slave force and also as a food force. And then they hijacked the pyramids, and instead we're using them as a control grid. Mm-hmm. Well, we've gotten that has changed. There are things that are changing. The battle rages on higher densities. So if you're listening to a source that's telling you that, don't worry, in a week, a month, whatever it is, it's all going to be golden. It's not the truth. It's not. We got, years of battle ahead of us, and I don't want to be disheartening with that. But on this current timeline, we do have years ahead that are going to be tough. And what we've gotten is, the way it looks right now, probably the next 3 years or so are going to be the toughest. They're going to be tougher than what we've gone through so far. So we have to basically get ourselves ready for that and just get that resolve. Get that resolve, because on the good side of things, we are getting stronger every day. As they attack our body with so many different things, out there. There's so many different things out there that many people may not even be aware of as we get ready to go into another LOCKDOWN. There are many things out there that are affecting us in ways we do not, not all, many of you get it totally, do not necessarily understand. And there's certain technologies out there, as we look at these towers all around there sending us our signals, that when combined with certain other things, well, they equal basically AIDS on a global scale.
Right. And it's just, unfortunately, so many of our family members are not aware of exactly what's happening to them. They're still going on with mainstream. They're just going to work and coming home, going to work, coming home, acting as if nothing is really wrong with our planet, just doing what they can, the best as they can. When you guys are the ones who have been informed, you've taken the time to dig underneath and find some more truths. Just keep in mind at some point your information is going to be held very, very valuable. It's going to be very, very important. So don't be disheartened if you feel like you're alone and you don't have anybody to talk to. There's a reason you're being given this time to do the research, to learn all of these things, and in your area, that's so that you can help other people close to you and your own family, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. And so, when we have to, this is what Cindy and I do. We do these, when we have to, when it's, the law. We don't do that.
Mm-mm.
We don't do that. And, I did buy a pack of MAGNETs just to go and test stuff, and we're not magnetic, although we do know people that are magnetic and that haven't had a certain thing done,
Mm-hmm.
and that haven't even been tested for a certain thing. But there's certain things they did use. Thankfully, though, we could go to using these
Mm-hmm.
and not run into that issue. Just to say, when we have to, because it does look like we're going into LD 2.0.
Yep. Yep.
That's coming, and so we have been restocking up, as we had let our supplies dwindle some from carrying it halfway across the country. Now we are restocking, and at the same time we know the prices are increasing drastically, and then the actual shortages are starting to manifest. So that's a reality. So we might have to actually be hunkered down for a long period of time in the house. And how long is this period of time? It could be a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The government said, be ready for 6 months without the grid and without any support. And we've gotten that the toughest of these times might last up to 3 years. And, that would take us to where? That would take us to after the second eclipse that happens in April of 2024. And again, people will look to that as confirmation of the book of Revelations, or is it just part of the script, is what we're saying. Because if you're, again, looking totally at just the prophecies out there and saying, this is all proof that the Bible is 100% right, well, then how do you give us a reason for why the Hopi prophecies go into such great detail and talking things about like spider webs crisscrossing the sky, and we see all those trails that happen to start with CHEM that sounds just like that, and talking about iron horses, and they give such amazing descriptive reality of what the times do look like, and then even talks about a WW3 scenario and who's going to be in it as far as the individual countries. But it's not just that. We could go to the prophecies of Peter Deneuve. We could go to Mother Shipton. We could go to all sorts of prophecies from thousands of sources that all say the same thing about these times. It's because we have innate psychic abilities and we could tap in and see certain timelines.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean the creator of the universe wants this to happen. That's what they want you to think, so that you'll manifest it. They want you to think, oh, I'm just a worthless sinner. I have no worth at all, and I deserve to be burning in hellfire forever. Well, that's the powers that be that want you to think that way. That way you'll go and you'll be so fearful, you'll embrace anything that they tell you in their system. And as we've talked about before, King James was the head of all the Masonic churches in what would now be the UK, in England, the head of all the Masonic lodges, the insider's insider. And yet you trust the King James Bible? Really? How about just the entirety of what they give us in the Bible, which was again put together by Constantine, the Roman emperor who executed his wife and firstborn in order to make sure he could keep power, who had a vision of Christ on the cross telling him to conquer under this sign, and basically in his name. Yeshua, that doesn't jive with Yeshua. Yeshua said, somebody slaps you on one cheek, turn the other. Somebody wants your cloak, give them your tunic too. Before you go trying to take the speck out of your brother's eye, take the plank out of your own. I mean, that's not anything that Yeshua would ever say. He would never say go conquer under his sign. That is so anti-Yeshua. That is so anti-Christ.
Right.
That is so anti-Christian. What's christened? Christened is, again, anointed. Why do they put the little X, right over your third eye with oil? Because it's symbolizing, again, the Kundalini and being enlightened. Have an active Kundalini developing your Merkaba. What are angels' wings? They're the Merkaba. That's what angels' wings are. Somebody else had talked about fallen angels, and we're touching on some of the topics in that video. And beware the fallen angels, because they could look just like, angels of light. Satan himself could come as an angel of light. Well, if you want to say who is that referring to, it's referring to the power structure that's here, putting themselves off as beings of light. So that means, the church itself, all those preachers that, are basically driving around in 9 BMWs and Mercedes, when Christ said, if you really want to follow me, give away all your belongings, give them to the poor. And then, come on, let's go with just what's on your back right now. Are they living that way? No. That is Satan coming as an angel of light. When you are at that point, when your Kundalini is activated, your third eye is activated, and you're in touch with your higher self through an activated crown chakra, it's so obvious the lies. We're talking to family members today, and they're just saying how they're looking at people and they're walking around and they're seeing that they're nothing but shells.
Mm-hmm.
They're empty shells that are being manipulated and maneuvered around. They're basically possessed, so to speak. And what we have now going on is an attempt to basically possess the hearts, minds, and souls and very bodies of the mass of the population on the planet to turn them into nothing but shells assimilated into the Borg. So what good does it if you gain the entire earth but lose your very soul?
Mm-hmm.
As Satan was saying to Jesus, tempting him, right? It's a decision we have to make. Will we succumb? Do you love your freedom of travel? Do you have to make these trips? Do you have to go to certain places? There's, as we had said before, there's MAN dates coming out all over the place. Simon says, put these on. Simon says, take them off. Simon says, put them on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Put them on. Simon didn't say, right? So we wanted to get that across to you guys. That just basically take your preparations to an all new stage, get yourself as physically healthy as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Be aware that there's things out there that are going to be lowering your immune system. So you basically have to take it from the standpoint of, I have to treat it as if somebody that has an autoimmune problem, an inflammation problem, because pretty much everybody is going to be going through that because we're all being subjected to things in the air and frequencies along the wavelengths that are inducing these conditions. There's a reason why people are so lethargic, tired, always having to sleep. Some of it is the incoming energies. Some of it is upgrades. Some of it is getting the downloads and your guides wanting to talk to you. Others is actually on the negative end. It's the stuff we're inhaling in, the NaNO and the FIVEG frequencies that are triggering certain NaNOs and creating an inflammatory response and immune suppression. So there's a lot going in here. It's amazing just how the dark side counterfeits everything that is good that's going on. They try to parallel it, but in a negative way.
Mm-hmm. And they're pretty awful that way. So we got to be on top of it. And we have to have an understanding of what's going on. So that's why we cover both good and bad, because you have to know what's going on for your reaction to it.
Yes, and the higher density beings, they want you knowing, and that's why it's our job to be a relay to let you guys know what's going on. So again, thank you guys so much for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you guys. Also, thank you all who have been checking out Medicinal Foods, as there is a link on every video, and people have had great feedback from that. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you're sharing, because this war ends when we hit a critical mass. As soon as the majority of the world is awake, and yes, that's a tough one. As soon as we get a certain critical mass to being awake, the paradigm will shift. The power structure will crumble into dust and be just a horrible memory. And so the faster we could do it is the more we could share and wake up people. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.